This message comes from Easy Cater, making it easy for organizations to order food for meetings and events from favorite restaurants, set up meal programs for their employees, and manage food spend all in one place at easycater.com.
There was what I would say is kind of a magic beans jobs narrative that the tech industry campaigned on. Computer science is interesting and important, but it came with this promise of learn to code and you'll be rich and powerful, you'll be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And that was part of what we believed culturally.
I've been laid off a few times in my life. Once in 2013 from a motorcycle dealership that, in retrospect, was totally correct to let me go. Then again in 2020, when I was in production for a video series for a company that shuttered without telling us. And I remember that for a long time, there was a common refrain that some people parroted to newly unemployed folks like myself as soon as they could. Learn to code. I heard these words all the time. Like there was an idea that getting a coding job in tech was your one-way ticket out of desperation and into the good life. And this wasn't just true for people already in the workforce. STEM education became a priority for both K-12 and colleges. But today, learn to code holds almost no weight. The tech industry is hemorrhaging jobs. According to one estimate, there have been over 700,000 tech workers laid off since 2022. And according to the Federal Reserve's data released last year, the unemployment rate for computer science grads was double that of art history majors in 2023. But this all has me thinking, how did we get here? And if a cushy position in tech isn't the quote-unquote good job anymore, what is? I'm joined by Raya Jetta, tech culture reporter for the San Francisco Standard.
Thanks for having us.
And Natasha Singer, technology reporter for the New York Times and author of the upcoming book, Coding Kids, Big Tech's Battle to Remake Public Schools.
Thanks so much for having us.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. We got to talk about what's going on with tech jobs. There have been a lot of layoffs in the past few years. Tech companies are getting leaner and leaner. What's behind these layoffs? Like, is it AI or is it something else?
It is AI, but it's also a bunch of other things. It might be helpful to look back on tech hiring over the past decade to contextualize this moment. So through much of the 2010s, interest rates were low and venture capitalists who fund tech companies when they're still private were spraying money at these companies in the hopes that by them going public, they would generate big returns. And in this environment, there was loads of hiring. And then the pandemic happened, which brought big changes to e-commerce and social media. Yeah. There was even more hiring. And so if we're looking at this moment, back to your question, I chalk it up to pandemic overhiring, economic pressures like higher interest rates and economic uncertainty. And then, of course, the elephant in the room is AI. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's a big reshuffling going on.
You know, it's not just that there are new AI tools that can do some human tasks that tech companies are encouraging employees to use. Mm-hmm. It's that big companies like Microsoft and Google are shifting their priorities to build more and more of these huge data centers, which, you know, they're pouring billions of dollars into and moving teams to focus on AI products. And so it's also that there's much more spending on AI, which may mean there's going to be less spending on human capital. And then on top of that, Stanford recently did a study called Canaries in the Coal Mine, looking at the jobs that were most vulnerable to being replaced by AI or reduced by AI. And the top two were call center workers and software engineers.
Part of what we wanted to talk about here was the culture story of this. For years, when journalists got laid off, for example, the advice a lot of us received was, learn to code. Like it's this kind of this golden ticket, like beyond that comment being kind of rude, I think it speaks to the perception of tech jobs being good jobs, of the tech industry having more of a future than more humanities-focused jobs. Where did that perception come from and how have things changed?
So somewhere around 2012, We see a kind of increase in prominent tech executives saying, we have to teach computer science in high schools. We have to teach kids to learn how to code because these are the jobs of the future. These are high-paying jobs. You will, if you major in computer science in college, right out of college, get a $100,000 job with a $15,000 hiring bonus and maybe stock grants of $50,000, that these jobs would set you up for life. They would be interesting, high-paying, plus, you'd get to change the world.
Yeah.
And so there was what I would say is kind of a magic beans jobs narrative that the tech industry campaigned on, and you saw big companies like Google and Microsoft and nonprofit education groups funded by them lobbying to get more computer science in schools, developing their own company-branded computer science lessons, and teaching teachers to teach them. Computer science is interesting and important, but it came with this promise of learn to code and you'll be rich and powerful, you'll be the next Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
And that was part of what we believed culturally.
I was reporting a story on entry-level jobs last year, and I was talking to one computer science professor at UC Berkeley who's been teaching for over 2 decades. And before big tech layoffs became a regular occurrence, many of his students would bag multiple offers from the most prestigious tech companies. We're talking Apple, Google, Microsoft. And they would stop by his office to deliberate which one to accept.
Wow.
In a sign of the times, now at his office hours, students are dropping by either not being able to land jobs or landing jobs that were not on their wish list. Coding has gone, as you said, from this golden ticket to now being a commoditized skill that anyone can do. I think we must talk about the rise of vibe coding tools, which listeners might be familiar with. It's basically where you can prompt AI in plain English to produce code for you. I, as someone with no technical skills, I could vibe code an app for myself or tell AI to code something very specific. That has dramatically decreased the perceived value that people see in computer science.
Coming up,
there are many people whose identities are wrapped up in their jobs. And I think we're in the beginning of a profound shift about what work is and how AI tools will affect it and what kinds of jobs are going to go away.
stick around.
This message comes from NPR sponsor, LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Finding the right leads can feel like an endless search for sellers. What if you could get to the right conversations faster? From finding new leads to strengthening existing relationships, LinkedIn Sales Navigator is your strategic AI-powered partner. It cuts through the noise with real-time data and insights, backed by LinkedIn's network of over 1 billion professionals. Try it free for 60 days at linkedin.com/benaminute. That's linkedin.com/benaminute. Terms and conditions apply. This message comes from Babbel. Babbel's conversation-based language technique teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/NPR. Spelled BABBEL.com/NPR. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Support for NPR and the following message come from HomeServe. It never happens at a good time. The pipe bursts at midnight. The heater quits on the coldest night. Good thing HomeServe's hotline is available 24/7. Call to schedule a repair and a local pro will be on their way. Trusted by millions. For plans starting at $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
You know, you mentioned that like new grads trying to get into tech are not getting hired, at least not the same way that they were before. Natasha, what's going on there?
Well, I think a couple of things are going on. One is that if you went to a top school like Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, It was always much easier for many kids to get jobs at Microsoft or Google because you were at a top computer science school. And even with this learn to code and you'll get a six-figure job at a fancy tech company and change the world, that was always hard for students at lesser known state schools or kids at historically Black universities or other places that don't have reputations for being top computing schools. So like this narrative of we'll magic you into money and power if you can code wasn't true for every college student even before this. I think what's changed is, as Raya pointed out, even some students at top computer science schools are having trouble. And first of all, I talked to dozens of students last year about this, and they said things like, I feel gaslit about my career prospects. Like, I think it's also different for them than for students who majored in something else that didn't maybe have this narrative. They feel more disappointed because they feel they were promised something. In terms of what's happening, tech companies now want employees who are familiar with coding tools because it can make you a more efficient software engineer. And the students who graduated this year and last year and the year before were not trained to use these tools because they just came up. And now we see universities scrambling to train kids how to use these AI tools. And I just did a story last month about how AI has become like the hot new major on many college campuses. It's interesting because you see schools like MIT, where computer science was the number one major. They began offering a separate major in AI. It's now the number two major at MIT in the course of a few years.
Wow.
And like one of the questions is like, the tech industry is really excited about AI, and they're telling us we're going to have an AI-driven future and an AI-driven economy. There is a massive interest among students in learning how to use these AI tools, both for themselves and for their potential careers. But there's also this huge potential for the AI bubble to burst, for some of the valuations of these AI-heavy companies to come down, and also for AI to be a fad, right? And that like maybe you don't want an AI plus something degree because 4 years from now there'll be some other technology that you'll need to know.
I feel like I'm seeing a lot of the same patterns of tech companies going to schools and universities and exerting a lot of influence over what their curricula look like, in terms of like tech and coding and all of this stuff, maybe 15 and 20 years ago. It feels very similar. The pattern feels quite similar now as far as perhaps trying to convince universities, students, and, job seekers that AI is what's next and you need to be prepared for it.
I think in public schools, AI is the new coding. And we're seeing Microsoft and Google and OpenAI and others, promote their chatbots, Google Gemini, OpenAI, ChatGPT, EDU, Microsoft Copilot for schools, for teachers, for students. And the difference between the push for coding and the push for AI is like computer science was an established discipline. It's decades old. We know how to teach it. And also it has value. Like it's just an important thing to study computer science to understand the world around you since we're so tech infused in everything we do. We want kids to know how the internet works or how their cell phone works or how algorithms show us things and can manipulate us. The difference with the push for AI is that computer science was a discrete subject, whereas the tech industry is pushing to, get AI into every subject, in every classroom.
Going beyond college students, looking at people who are already in the workforce, there is this push within tech companies to mandate what they're calling AI fluency. It's kind of this new diktat that's being passed to employees by their CEOs. Hypercharge your productivity with AI or else. One startup founder recently wrote, 100% of new hires must be fluent in AI. I think in your job, you're now expected to be experimenting with how AI can change processes and systems in your job and come up with new workflows and make you more efficient. So, for example, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy wrote to employees last year to educate themselves and attend workshops and take trainings and experiment with AI whenever they can. I presume as more companies want to adopt AI and boost their efficiency, that we see industries outside of just the tech industry asking their employees to experiment with AI.
Okay, I want to kind of zoom out here. Like, we have unpacked all of these shifts and changes in what previously defined a quote unquote good job. What are laid off tech workers or new computer science graduates like pivoting to? Like, what are the quote unquote good jobs now?
I've talked to college students who are thinking, well, I like to build things, and because of these coding agents, I probably can't build the kind of things myself anymore I want. So maybe I'm going to go into architecture. But I think you're asking a really profound question, which is, how is the nature of work changing in all fields? And how does that affect what it means to be human? Because at least in the United States, there are many people whose identities are wrapped up in their jobs. And I think we're in the beginning of a profound shift about what work is and how AI tools will affect it and what kinds of jobs are going to go away. Like when I talked to high school students, they were like, well, my whole life I wanted to go into computer-generated graphic, animation, making animated films.
Yeah.
And now AI can do that. And so maybe I'm going to be a social worker because my dream job is not going to exist in a few years.
Raya, have you seen any of this as well?
Absolutely. I mean, San Francisco is a town full of very professionally driven people. And so I think this is on everyone's mind, regardless of whether you're an entry-level woco or an experienced woco. I was talking to one startup founder a few weeks ago who kind of like summed up the current mood in the Valley very well. And it was that everyone feels a lot of fear and everybody is worried that their job might be eaten up by ChatGPT 6 or ChatGPT 7. So I think this profound shift that both you and Natasha have alluded to is on everybody's mind here, because how could it not be?
This has been extremely eye-opening, so thank you both so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for asking such provocative questions.
That was Raya Jetta, tech culture reporter for the San Francisco Standard, and Natasha Singer, technology reporter for the New York Times and author of the upcoming book, Coding Kids, Big Tech's Battle to Remake Public Schools. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Liam McBain.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Engineering support came from
Tiffany Vera Castro.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from Betterment. You know when you sell a stock or any investing asset and start to feel the dread of getting a surprise tax bill? Betterment's Tax Impact Preview tool shows you the estimated tax impact of the sale, so you can make informed, tax-smart investing decisions. Get started today at Betterment.com. Investing involves risk, performance not guaranteed. Betterment is not a tax advisor, nor should any information herein be considered tax advice. Please consult a qualified tax professional.
This message comes from Angie. Tackling a home project? Angie can connect you with pros who do such a good job you might ask them to be your kid's godfather. Don't do that. Just trust them to get the job done. Find a pro for your projects at Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.
This message comes from Normal Gossip, a Radiotopia podcast. Join host Rachel Hampton as she shares juicy, strange, funny, and utterly banal gossip about people you'll never know and never meet. Subscribe to Normal Gossip wherever you get your podcasts.